Good evening, people. Welcome back to that GD show. Hey, Genevieve.
Hi, how are you doing?
You are the G in that GD show.
Indeed, it stands for nothing else.
Nothing else. No, get your mind out of the gutter, people. It's not that goddamn show. It's that Genevieve and Dave show.
Duh.
What's new in your world? You doing okay?
Yeah, doing okay. It was a tough weekend. Thank you so much for texting me. But good. Just, one foot in front of the other, and days like Monday where we do the show just really brighten up my whole week. So I'm doing much better now. Thank you.
Me too. Yeah, I figured it might be tough for you. But yeah, what shows you got? What do you got coming up? You've been on or gonna be on?
Well, I was just on the nonprofits a couple weeks ago, and so that was really great. I don't have anything scheduled at the moment, but I've been in talks to jump on a couple different things. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
I love to see you out there doing that stuff. And folks in the chat, give a shout out to our buddy Secular Rarity. He's been hosting the Atheist Experience the last 2 weeks in a row and doing amazing. He's just crushing it. So I don't know. I shouldn't say I'm really proud of him, but I am. He's one of our guys.
Crushing it.
He's done such a good. I got to host with him 2 weeks ago, and then he was on again last week.
Oh,
so,
I'm jelly.
Yeah. So here we are. Before we bring our guest on, we got a couple of things. Of course, like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you're coming over from our guests, like I'm keeping it a big secret, our guest tonight, if you're coming over from their content and their channels and stuff, and just discovering this amazing show, you're going to want to subscribe, you're going to want to like, and you're going to want to tune in every week, because this is objectively and without a doubt the best show on the internet. I mean, it just is.
Yeah, of course.
And it's a call-in show, right, Genevieve? So how do they call in and talk to us?
So you can call 217-375-9933, and that'll put you right on the line with us to talk about whatever you want to talk about. Hopefully relating to what we're talking about on the show. But if you just want to ask a question, that's fine too.
Yeah, and we do. We don't just, if you just want to chat and ask a question of some kind that's on your mind, we're not going to not take your call. We're going to talk to you if you call in. So feel free to call in and talk to us about the topic at hand or whatever's on your mind. If there's something that you need to talk to someone about. And there's our buddy Greg Markowski with almost always the first super chat, 1999. Thanks, Dave and Genevieve. And he was the winner last week of our trivia contest, which is now here. So here's the if you're new to the show, what we do almost every week, or when I don't forget it, because I'm a shameless promoter of my book, my memoir, the Childish Things, available on Amazon. We do. There it is. Thank you, Ethan. Oh, there's someone. Janet Moorcraft read your memoir. Dave couldn't put it down. Okay, here's a little. Read your memoir, Dave couldn't put it down. Powerful, moving, inspiring. Dave, you've been through so much. I cried. I love you. Oh, that is so great. What a great review. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Janet. I appreciate that. So we do a trivia question. Oh, my goodness. And Janet with a super chat, $49.99. Oh, my goodness. He's so sweet. Wow. We have the best people on this show, Janet.
We really do.
We really do. It's like a family, and it just warms my heart. Thank you, Janet. That's very kind. So we do a trivia question from the book. And I got to say, you guys have been getting them so fast that I'm having to dive a little deeper. And so the questions are going to get harder. So, also we had to make a little announcement last week. If you have won a mug, you get a GD Show mug if you get the question. There it is. If you get the first one to get the answer and put it in the chat, wins the GD Show mug. And it's a great mug. It is without a doubt the best mug in the history of mugs. So without further ado, the trivia question this week is, when I was beginning my deconstruction, I wandered into a Barnes and Noble and I picked up a book that I'd heard about, and I sat in the aisle and read that book. What was the name of the book and the author? You got to get the book and the author. We got to make these questions harder. You guys are too good. So, what was the book I read in the aisle of the Barnes and Noble in the very beginning of my deconstruction from Christianity? And the name of the book and the author. First one in the chat to get that wins a mug. So good luck, everyone. And that's all about that. So Genevieve, we've got an interesting guest tonight. I'm very excited to talk to her. I've been looking forward to this. It's a tough subject, but a much needed conversation. So without further ado, we have discovered the actual identity of Q.
Yes.
And she's here tonight. Welcome, please, Courtney Hurd.
Hi.
Hey,
I'm Q.
you're
Me.
Q.
Yay!
For the first time revealed to the world.
See, and now for everybody out there, you can tell your parents they can stop sending money to random QAnon pretenders. They can just send it straight to Courtney on her blog or her shop.
I have to say,
There you
you're not at all what I expected Q to be. I'm just saying. Oh no, it's spoiler alert, people. This is not Q. This is Courtney Hurd, godless mom on the interwebs, and it's such a pleasure to have you tonight. I've been a fan of yours for a lot of years. I don't know if you know this. When I started deconstructing my faith, I was, of course, getting on the internet looking for people I could identify with, as we all do. And back in, it must have been 2009, 2010, 11, somewhere along in there. I don't know how long you've been doing your blog, but it feels like I found you fairly. Have you go back that far with your blog?
2014 is when I started.
14. Okay. Well, I must have found you pretty early on because I really liked your content and your approach to things. So it was a really a good source for me. So it's all these years later. Here we are on on our Genevieve and I show, and here you are, and you're still
That's cool
doing the stuff. So good for you.
Yeah, kind of. I've kind of not been blogging as much about atheism so much, but you know, I just got to a point where it was like there's only so much you can say about not believing in God, you know. So I had to expand.
And and I think you're doing a thing with Janice Selby from the Conference on Religious Trauma. You guys do a YouTube show about parenting. What is that? Before I blow the content, what is that show about?
It's called Godless Moms, and we haven't actually been doing it lately, just because my like day job, my personal business has kind of blown up, so I rarely have the time to do it. So,
but you do
and
stuff
also
on
she's
parenting.
been traveling. Mostly parenting. Yeah,
I've seen some of the shows, and it's really good stuff. Anton Gomez from Mexico, $20 or 20 pesos or 20 Mexican dollars. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. He just put in the note Q. Oh, he's the real Q.
Yeah, there you go.
And Bill Castle, thank you, $4.99 super sticker. So this is a tough conversation in some ways, I think, because it's very personal to you, and we'll get into that in a minute. But give us a little backstory on you. You grew up atheist, so unlike a lot of our guests that came out of evangelicalism or Christianity, you've always been a non-believer, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I really didn't even understand like what God or Jesus was until I was like, I don't really know how old I was, 10, maybe 13, before I really had a grasp of what other people were believing in. So yeah, I grew up atheist. My parents are both, well, they were both atheists, but we could get into later how I don't know that that's entirely true anymore. So
yeah, I was
things
going to
have
ask you about
changed.
that because things have definitely taken a turn that you didn't
Yeah.
see coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have a brother, and you guys grew up in a godless home. There was no talk of Jesus or salvation or original
Not
sin or
remotely.
the second coming or none of that. So
No, I
God,
legitimately thought that Jesus was something you yelled when you stubbed your toe. Well, I was like
you're
10.
you're not wrong.
I love it.
Well, that's
It was just
Genevieve's
not.
story as well. Genevieve didn't have
Oh,
any background in that too.
Yeah. Our parents sound very, very similar in that regard. Both, very smart. My mom was a double major in English and history. Neither of them were believers, and they had a lot to say about the far right in America and about religion and the bad influence it has had at large. And I'm grateful that they haven't gone down that same path that your parents have, which is I don't people understand how common that is. That
yeah.
humanist, hippie, leftist to QAnon conspiracy pipeline, but it's very real.
That's
Yeah.
curious to me
Yeah,
because I
it is.
didn't realize that. So I want to dig a little deeper into that part of that because I've always viewed the path to QAnon as a pretty straight line from right-wing evangelical conservative minded into that rabbit hole of the QAnon absolute utter horseshit. The stuff they believe is mind blowing in its
It is.
absurdity. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
so ridiculous. You just have to suspend all kinds of intellectual honesty to even consider it as remotely true. And
Yeah.
as I told you backstage, Courtney, we don't on this show. We never bash or ridicule people, but we do ridicule ideas when they're
Mm-hmm.
worthy of ridicule, when they're worthy of criticism. We don't we don't lighten that, but we understand that people are people and people are good and they mean well, and all of us at times believe things that are not credible. I did for years in evangelicalism, so I'm not ever going to be one
Mm-hmm.
to bash people, but ideas need to be criticized when they're not only wrong but at times dangerously wrong. So
Yeah.
you grew up secular. Everything's great. You always thought your parents, or maybe still think that they are, completely atheistic without any concept of a God belief or deity, correct?
Yeah. I mean, my mom at times would like dabble in spiritual stuff, but it was always like, like she was really into the positive thinking thing,
Okay.
like what you think you can manifest in your life, which just,
Mm-hmm.
I bought into it too when I was a teenager. So I
So a
know
little,
it's like
little
to
bit,
believe in strange
little
things.
bit woo woo. Okay, a little woo woo. Okay.
Yeah. But, I grew out of it. My mom never really did, but it was always harmless. I felt that that was harmless. Like there's nothing
All right.
wrong with her putting a positive spin on things in her life. So, but I kind of grew out of that and I realized that no, you literally have to do things to make changes in your life. You have to
You
get
can't
off your
just
butt.
think happy thoughts
Yeah.
and make
Yeah.
everything better. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
That would
think
be
about
nice though. That would be
yeah,
very
just
nice.
puppies and rainbows, and then walk out the door and
Yeah.
everything's great.
Yeah.
No.
But outside of that, and my mom, like, she's always kind of, I don't know, there's just been like lore, let's call it, in my family about, like, for instance, my aunt believes that she talks to my dead grandfather. And my mom, I think there's part of her that believes that. And we lost, just before the pandemic, we lost my aunt, which is a good thing because she would have not been able to cope with the pandemic at all. But we lost her, and my mom, she thinks she sees like signs from her
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. But outside of that, that's it. Outside of that, there was never any religious anything. In fact, I would say that we had more indigenous beliefs and we're not indigenous, but my dad was very into learning about indigenous culture, and he worked with a lot of indigenous clients because he was a social worker.
Mm-hmm.
And And so I knew more about like what a lot of the indigenous people around Vancouver believed than what Christians believed.
And that's more of a spiritual element with nature and that kind of thing, correct?
Yeah, and my dad didn't believe the spiritual side of it. He was staunch. Like I remember I have a blog post about this on my blog, but there was one time where we grew up in Vancouver, and in Vancouver there's earthquakes. And there was always some guy on the news predicting that there was going to be the big one coming. And there was this one night when we were all sitting around the dinner table, and my parents have the news on all the time. And this guy comes on and he says, on Friday, there's going to be a massive earthquake in the Lower Mainland. And so my brother, my mom, and I got really scared about that. And we planned to take the day off from school, and we all stayed home, and we packed like bottled water and cans of beans and all this stuff. And my dad had the day off already, I guess. And the day rolled around, and my brother and my mom and I were all just like really worried about it. My dad was just downstairs playing Super Nintendo, Mario Kart, to be exact.
When the world's ending, he's playing video games? Oh my God.
No, he just kept swearing about it. Like, this is such a load of BS and blah, blah, blah. So
that's funny.
Yeah, and it didn't happen. And, he got to say, I told you so for a while. But that's my dad. Like, he did not fall for stuff. He was not a sucker, ever.
Do you think your mom's leading the charge here? Because sometimes in a couple that's been together a long time, one person will kind of grab the reins and the other just kind of comes along for the ride. Is that kind of what you see this as happening?
Yeah, it's definitely my mom's leading what's going on here, because my dad's health over the past, let's say, 10 years, his health has deteriorated. He's had a couple of strokes, and the last one he had after the vaccine, so that was great.
Oh, Jesus.
Of course,
no.
Yeah,
of course.
they blamed the vaccine for that.
See, I told you. Yep. Get those microchips in there. You see what happens.
Despite the fact that the neurologist said, like, he showed them an x-ray, like they had physical evidence in front of them. He said, you see all these little spots, these are tiny little brain bleeds that have been happening over the last 10 years. But of course, no, it's not that. It's not the fact that he doesn't take care of himself or anything like that. It is the vaccine. But anyways, he's like in the beginning stages of dementia. So he absolutely is affected by what's going on in his brain and his health situation. And my mom is in control of everything, right? Like, because he can't get around the way that he used to. He still walks and everything. He just can't walk for long, and he needs help going up and down stairs and stuff like that. So it's definitely my mom. My mom is definitely leading the charge here. But my dad has taken it hook, line, and sinker. So
has he? Yeah. So as we get into that, I want to back us up, and Genevieve and Courtney both just chime in as you will. If someone, I think someone in the chat said, what's QAnon? So if someone came from another planet and heard people talking about QAnon, explain it in QAnon for Dummies. What is it? And help us understand it. Hey, Kim Possible, Dave, hubby and I are looking forward to seeing you again soon in Nashville. Yep, at NanoCon in Nashville, end of July. Thank you, Kim, for that Antichrist super chat of 666. This channel's cursed, obviously. What's QAnon? Tell for the layperson. Explain it.
It is. It's difficult to explain.
Yeah,
I don't really know where it originated from. I think people say that it started on 4chan and stuff like that, but essentially it's just a collection of conspiracy theories that people believe. And of course, part of it is that the pandemic was all planned, and that there's all the politicians, the Democratic politicians, which is weird. We're Canadian. I don't know why my parents believe in this stuff, but all these, Democratic politicians in the U.S. are all part of this, pedophile ring, and there's Donald Trump is, of course, going to save us from them.
He's
and
Superman.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and Putin as well, which is awesome.
And JFK Jr. somehow.
Yeah, of course. I forgot about JFK Jr.
Yeah.
It has some roots. It has some roots in Pizzagate. I did some research.
It does.
You
Yeah.
remember Pizzagate, the child pedophile
Mhm.
ring at the pizza parlor in D.C. that Hillary Clinton somehow ran.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, something
despite
that's
the fact that
also no. Go ahead.
they stormed that pizzeria and found they didn't even have a basement.
Well,
But
one
they
guy
just-
did. He actually drove from North Carolina, where I live. Thank you. Yes. And he was going to rescue the children because hashtag save the children. Who can be against that, right? And he got there with guns. It could have been bad. He got arrested. I think he got sentenced to 6 years. But he really, really, really believed children were being held in that basement, and he felt compelled to rescue them. So that's how these ideas can be dangerous. Someone could have died in that altercation there. We're lucky they didn't, but they have in other places. Go ahead, Genevieve.
Yeah, and not just that, but I drive past that pizzeria. It's a very popular space for families in DC, and obviously this guy literally driving it from North Carolina and storming the place armed was a big headline. But even outside of that, the weeks before and the weeks after, I mean, their phones are just getting inundated with angry calls from around the world, around the country, sending death threats. It's been so harrowing for these staff that literally just want to make pizza and have a cool place for people to hang out. It's so bizarre. And something that's important, I think, for people to remember, because it's so difficult making sense of QAnon and sort of like how to describe it to somebody. But it's not a new phenomenon, and we have seen these similar conspiracy theories about New World Order and a shadow government, and where there are puppeteers pulling the strings, and traditionally it has been an incredibly anti-Semitic conspiracy theory for the last few hundred years.
And white supremacist, yes.
Absolutely.
Deep in racism, deep roots of racism, right. Conspiracies go way back. I'm thinking of my early days as a Jesus freak in the 70s, where Jesus was coming back. And, Kim Possible does that 666 donation every week. 666, we really thought was the number of the Antichrist, the mark of the beast. And there were always these ideas floating around. Now, of course, we didn't have the internet, so that makes everything much easier to propagate and to disseminate out there into the sphere. I mean, it's so easy with one post, with one anonymous post, Q, you son of a bitch, to get everyone all stirred up, and it can go all over the world with just the click of a keyboard. And that's what's so dangerous about this.
Yeah, that's exactly how it started with my parents. I can pinpoint it. It was when my mom retired. She was a teacher.
A lot of time on her hands.
Retired.
Yep.
Yeah, she retired, and it was, I believe it was the year 2000 or something. Anyway, she retired. She was very bored, and she had the internet, and she just started reading. Of course, she was very into like alternative medicine and home remedies and stuff like that, which at the time I didn't think that taking vitamin C when you have a cold was going to hurt anybody, right? But she got to the point where she was like, she would call my brother and I and just go on and on and on about these remedies, and anytime we had a cold, she'd show up with like oil of oregano, echinacea, all this stuff. And she would just go on, and it drove my brother and I crazy to constantly hear this stuff. So we finally said, okay, we'll make you a blog so you can talk to other people about it, right? We don't want to hear it anymore. And so we made her a blog.
Oh my God.
She actually, she blogged on that thing for like 6-7 years, and it slowly got crazier and crazier. And then it got, because she doesn't know how to run a blog or anything like that. So she relied on my brother and I to have this blog running. And so it finally got to the point where it's like, I can't in good conscience be a part of this anymore. And so I stopped managing the blog and it died. But she still had a Facebook page for this blog. And luckily it wasn't very active, but she still would post, up until like about 4 years ago, she would post like crazy stuff on there. And so I went into the settings, so she doesn't know this. Hopefully she's not listening to this.
No, I hope she watches this show, actually.
Well, because I had to set up the Facebook page, so I was an admin, so I went in there and I set it to only show in Saudi Arabia.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
For a long time, she's been posting anti-vax stuff to Saudi Arabia. So,
oh my God, that's great. Wondering
yeah,
why she gets wondering why she doesn't get any comments. She gets comments in Arabic. Oh my God. Hey, we've got a call I want to get to here, and then we'll continue your conversation about your parents going down the rabbit hole. Because I wanted to read a little bit of the letter. You okay with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Or you can pull it up and read it. Maybe you would be better. Let's talk to Greg, him in Missouri, talking about how people treat each other, which is not good most of the time. Greg, you're on with Dave and Genevieve and Courtney. How you doing?
Hello. How are you guys tonight?
Is this Greg Markowski, our super fan?
Yes, it is.
I thought so.
It's a little embarrassing, but you guys are so fantastic. If I'm going to be a super fan of something, I'm glad it's you guys.
We appreciate it. No, it's what's bothering you about the way people treat each other? I don't see any of that especially on Twitter.
Yeah, no problem.
I don't see it. I don't know what you're talking about, honestly. What do you think? I mean, I'm what is it?
I'm not sure we're going to survive. I mean, we just treat each other so horribly, and I'll give you an example. And I'm trying not to be angry at the conservatives or liberals. I mean, because it really isn't a liberal conservative thing or an atheist theist thing. It really is all of us. We to some degree. Now, of course, I'm a liberal progressive atheist, so of course I'm going to take that side. But it's still. And here's an example. And again, it's coming from the right, but I'm going to use it anyway because it's a real good example. 10, 15 years ago, when we would used to discuss healthcare in this country, maybe 20 years ago. Okay, I would totally disagree with the folks on the right. It's like, no, you're wrong. We need to do this. We need to catch up with the rest of the world. We're fooling ourselves. People are living in despair. I mean, my own brother, went into bankruptcy because they couldn't pay medical bills. I mean, it was terrible. It is terrible. So we have to do something, right? And the pushback from the right at that time was, oh yeah, but how will we pay for it? Okay.
Right.
And again, we can have that discussion. And this isn't really the point of my story, but we can have that discussion, but it was respectful. It's like, oh, we don't have the money. We're sure. Yeah, we'd love to do it. And now it's just sort of like, you people are a bunch of socialist communists. And of course they lump those two words together because they don't know what they're talking about. And you all are going to hell and you should be shot because you're a bunch of commies. And it's like, really, can't we discuss this like adults? Why do we have to resort to this? And it just bothers me. And I'm going to tell a bad story on myself now. And I was at my other brothers, the Buddhist brother, and we were watching some news program in Sunday morning, pretty mainstream, ABC or one of those, and there was a congressperson, and he had some ideas he was talking about, and I got upset at him and cursed, and I probably made an obscene gesture at the TV. And my brother got mad at me because he said, well, this fellow is one of the folks that voted to impeach Trump, and I don't remember which congressperson it was. Right. And he said, if we're ever going to bridge this gap, we can't just be knee jerk. Now, he was, quite frankly, to defend myself a little bit, he was he was kind of discussing, oh yeah, they're going to pack the courts, and it's like, no one's packing the courts. I wish we could, but no one's doing it. So shut the F up, you know. But anyway, but that's just the point of my story. All of us, you know, myself included, we just have these knee-jerk things and treat each other so poorly, and it just bothers me. And I'm sorry, I'm rambling on. I don't know. Do you guys have any ideas? How can we bridge this? How can we?
How do we do better?
This?
Yeah.
You
How do
know?
we do better? Any thoughts, ladies?
And that's, you know, that's one of the reasons I love your show in particular, but several of the other shows, but your show in particular, because, you know, you do really try to reach out and be respectful to folks with opposing views, you know, unless it's really stupid and out there, but for the most part, you know, and that's why I love you guys. But anyway, how do we do better? Dave, I'll shut up.
Appreciate it, Greg. What do you think, Genevieve?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're spot on, and it has definitely just gotten worse as our concepts of reality have become so different on either side. It's difficult to bridge those gaps and have conversations and talk about how to move forward and understand one another when you're both getting completely different sources, and one of those sources telling you that the opposite side is actually like bringing about the death of America because they're commie, socialists, etc. I mean, I think back to a very specific example when I was working as a campaign manager in 2020, speaking to Republican volunteers at the polls. And after getting berated by them and mocked for, you know, the hour that I was standing there to support my candidate, I finished our conversation by saying, hey, well, at the end of the day, we're all Americans, and you know, we can be united on that front, and like we all just want what's best. And in response, that person said, for now. And that's the thing. They genuinely didn't see me as an American citizen of equal value to them. And I think that the only way to combat this, starting internally, is I remind myself that everybody believes that they are right. Nobody wakes up in the morning and just says like, oh, it's a great day to be a villain. I'm going to be a jackass and just lie my face off and destroy the world. That's not... No, people do things because they genuinely believe it. And if you can recognize that they are coming from a place of good, even if it's misguided, then it'll be much more difficult for you to dehumanize them. And then, of course, the next challenge is, well, how can you get them to not dehumanize you?
Exactly.
And that is, I do think it comes down to finding common ground and letting them know about that respect, and not, you know, coming at them not to change their mind, but coming from a place of genuine curiosity and understanding. How you do that on a mass scale, I don't know. But at least
I don't know that
one-on-one.
One-on-one's the answer. The key. Now, Courtney, you're from Canada, where everyone's nice. So everyone's everyone's nice and says I'm sorry 8 or 9 times a day. So what's your response to Greg? Yeah, how do you answer that?
You remember the
well, I had a couple of ideas. First of all, I kind of posed this question to one of Matt Dillahunty's show, and I actually kind of made me even more depressed, because Matt sort of said, you know, all you can do is meet people kind of one-on-one, and kind of just what Genevieve said, try to show them, you know, who you are and what you are, and give them good arguments, and hopefully they will eventually come around. And I know that helps on a small scale. I mean, look at you, Dave. I mean, you got out of it. You kind of figured stuff out. Yeah. But a suggestion I made to the brother in Columbia that got mad at me because I was flipping off the TV. But I suggested him because he has a couple of kids at home, and I think he's feeling a little isolated because, you know, you're a parent and you kind of have to, your priorities are your kids. And I think he's feeling a little isolated, and he's even in more despair, I think, about how people treat each other. Again, because I don't have kids, so, you know, once I die, like, okay, well, this thing go up in fire. I don't care. And actually, I do. I'm just joking. But my brother does care because he has a couple of kids. I suggested to him maybe he needs to start like I don't know. That's not the right term. Ethical society, a diplomatic society, but just like put an ad on the internet or in the, you know, where we're going to meet at this restaurant and political beliefs do not matter. We can discuss politics, but nobody can berate any people, each other, and start there. And maybe if you could get a group that would start treating each other well and discussing things without going overboard. I don't know. But, what we're all kind of saying is it's got to start small, and it's got to start with us.
Yeah, we do have a responsibility in it. What do you think, Courtney?
Well, up in Canada, we are, since the pandemic, we can drop that whole stereotype about nice Canadians. You guys saw the convoy, the Freedom Convoy.
Yeah.
This every Saturday. This is every Saturday that never stopped. It's just parades of trucks and cars flying the Canadian flag. It's gotten to the point now where the Canadian flag is now, like, most people are seeing it as a hate symbol, which is crazy.
Kind of like what we've done with our flag here. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, it's when you see one, you think, oh, stay away from that person, and that's kind of like the Canadian way. Like in that sense, I guess we're still a little bit polite, where it's like when you have those kinds, when you have those kinds of differences, we just kind of stay away from each other and we just avoid. But it's probably not the best way to deal with it. So I don't really know. Honestly, I think part of the reason why people have become like this, especially since the pandemic, is ultimately privilege. It's boredom, and it's a complete detachment from the reality of the world around them, because there was a point in time we had to fight and claw our way through survival, and now we literally, when we're hungry, we just order. We don't even have to talk to anybody to get food delivered to our door without even seeing a soul. And it's like everything has become convenient. Nobody has to work for anything. Obviously, lots of people work very hard in their jobs and stuff like that, but there's just a detachment from the realities of the world. When you go to a place where people are living, in poverty, none of them are believing in QAnon and treating each other like crap, because they're stressed all day long about where they're going to get their next meal and stuff like that. I just think that people are just completely detached from the reality, which is that we are these insignificant little specks that are just blips in the grand scheme of things. And I don't know. That's my feeling.
Yeah,
I don't know how to fix it.
Right, which is all the more reason why we need to treat each other well while we're here, because we are these insignificant specks, and it goes by so fast. So why bother being mean? Let's be nice to each other.
Yeah. It's tough. You raise a good question, Greg. I don't think any of us have any easy answers here tonight. But it's something I think we're all aware of. It's not, we're talking about QAnon tonight and the alt-right, if you will, political stream that Courtney's parents have now, Courtney has discovered her parents have embraced. Not alt-right per se, but just conspiracy theorists, banana boats. But thanks for that question, Greg, and we'll continue talking about it tonight as we delve into more of Courtney's story. But thanks for calling in, bro.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'll let you guys go, and I'm interested in hearing more of the story. It's fascinating.
Okay. All right. Thanks, brother.
Thank you guys for the show. I mean, I love you guys. You're fantastic.
Right.
So
thanks,
I'll talk
Greg.
to you later.
All right,
Thanks,
buddy.
Greg.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We have the best people.
I love Greg. So sweet.
I think you hit on it, Courtney. I've thought about this for a while now. I definitely think the hostility is ramped up in this country anyway, post-Trump, because he brought incivility to a new level on a public stage that we'd never seen before. Politics had a certain decorum about them, at least in the last 100 years or so. I know in past history, they used to get in fights on the floors and shit, but there had been a little bit of civility and decorum in disagreeing with your political opponent and being civil to them. Trump threw all that out the window and started just calling people names and just insulting them publicly. And the people that like that sort of behavior, all of a sudden were given permission to engage in it, like they'd never before. Here's the leader of the free world. So it didn't just affect our country. It bled over into all the countries who see all of this on TV and the internet every minute of every day. And because media, social media, and other media is broadcasting 24/7 worldwide now on a scale never before seen in humanity, anything anyone of import says is blasted out into the universe and repeated and reposted and shared and liked and all those things. So when he started operating that way, everyone who felt like that was okay or really kind of wanted to be able to express their anger in ways that they never had been given license to before, all of a sudden it was open season. And with the anonymity of our keyboards and our phone pads, we can just blast to everyone and never have to interact with the human being on the other side of that screen. That's the sad part of this. We have become disconnected from the other human that we're talking to. Because most people, now you'll see them shouting at each other at political rallies and shit, and the thing you saw, Genevieve. Yes, some people do get in each other's faces and get angry, but that's not the norm. That, there are the Karens in the grocery stores refusing to put their masks on. We've all seen those viral videos. But most people are civil when they're in front of each other. There's a certain politeness, if you will, and respect with that person who has a set of eyes and is a face that you're talking to, and you can see that they're a person just like you. When you take that away and you're just typing words onto a keyboard or a phone pad, you say and do whatever the hell you want because it doesn't matter. You're not talking to a person anymore. And you can say and do the most vile things. And we've lost all civility. We've lost any pretense of civility with the people we disagree with. And that can be a religious conversation, a political conversation. It can be anything. What's the best city to live in? I mean, you could get in a fight about that. And people are, I think it speaks to the economic inequality that people are experiencing, the struggle that, like you said, many people have just to survive. And they're angry. And they don't know who to take this anger out on. So they take it out on their neighbors, and they take it out on anybody that they can engage in a conversation with on the internet. And I don't know the answer other than break the fucking internet, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Dave, I'm glad that you mentioned the sad parts of this, about how a lot of this does come down to this economic disenfranchisement and this hopelessness. Because what I have noticed, and Courtney, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well, it seems to me that the people who are falling for conspiracy theories find them so captivating because it gives them this sense of power.
Yes.
It gives them this sense of being better than others because suddenly they're in the know. They are smart enough to not fall for the mainstream media narrative. They're not sheep, they're wolves. And I do find that incredibly depressing because I know that they're coming from a place of pain and a place of just confusion of where do you move forward? What do you do? And so they have my deepest sympathies there. And I wish that I do wish that it weren't so easy for people to become so radicalized.
Yeah, I think you touched on a key that people want to feel like they're in the know. They want to feel like they've got the secret information that no one has. From what I understand, Q would post things in very vague ways. They were very vague, mysterious posts. And so what the followers have to do, or had to do, I don't think he's posting anymore. The damage is done. What they would do is they would have to create the narrative. And there were, what were they called? The people that would take this cryptic message and build out the full message and disseminate it through the people. And so everybody would feel like, oh, we're figuring out what Q is saying, and we now have the secret message, and all of that. So it's just someone who doesn't have a sense of power, and it doesn't feel like they've got what's going on in the world like they want it to. My first actual human interaction with a QAnon believer was a couple of summers ago. I had kind of a reunion with a bunch of my original Jesus freak friends from out in West Texas. And they wanted to get together, and they wanted to kind of talk to me. They'd seen that I'd become an atheist, and I think a couple of them wanted to kind of try to reconvert me or whatever. So I went out and we had this little reunion, and all of them are still believers. But as we went around the circle and kind of shared our stories, and they asked me some questions about why I didn't believe anymore and that sort of thing. But one of the guys who was actually, I thought, the smartest of the bunch of us, used to teach physics in high school. He's a retired physics teacher, very educated person. He started sharing his journey, his faith journey, and the craziest stuff: aliens impregnating people, and the evil cabal, and Satan worshipers, and child sacrifice. And I literally, my mind was just reeling, and like, what am I hearing come out of this smart person's mouth? And I literally don't remember the details of it because I was so astonished. And I was looking around at the other guys, and they're all going, oh my God, what is this? All of us were just like stunned at what he was telling us he truly believed. And I said at one point, so you don't believe in God anymore? He said, no, I believe in God even more because of this. Like, God is in this. And I just thought, oh my God, I don't know what to say to those people. I really don't. Courtney, what do you say? I mean,
well, I think Genevieve, you touched on something that I've been thinking for a while here, and that is the sense of purpose that I think people have lost. And we talked a little bit about economic disadvantage, which is certainly one of the factors that draws people in, but there's also people who are very privileged too. Yes, like my parents are doing fine for money. They've traveled the world. They're, and they get sucked into this because they didn't have anything else going on. That was my point about like the convenience of being able to order. Yeah, it's just they're bored. There's no purpose to their lives anymore. There's no reason to get up in the morning, outside of kind of latching onto our lives, which, there's only so much you can do that with. And so it's also, I think, has to do with control. It's a big control thing, especially with respect to my mom. My mom, and she has 4 siblings. All 5 of them have my entire life been obsessed with food, diet, medicine, and living a long life and staying young. And they would point out when you get your first wrinkle, or they like make a big deal of seeing your first gray hair, which of course I have none. But it's very much about control with my mom. And that's why it started with the alternative medicine, was because she was trying to find a way to cheat death. And with the whole pandemic, it's far easier for somebody like her to believe that it was human caused and humans ultimately have control over that than it is to believe that we are literally at the mercy of this universe, and that some tiny little bug that we can't see could potentially wipe us out of existence.
Right.
For her, it's about control, and it's about her obsession with living to be, like, she's literally told me before that she's going to be the oldest living human ever. And she's, wow. There's parts of her that believes that there's a way that she can actually never die. But that's where this comes from for her specifically. And I think my dad, with his health becoming more of an issue in the last 10 years, has latched on to that as well, because he doesn't want to think about his own mortality. And if he believes everything my mom's selling, then they have full control over whether or not he dies, and it's sad, but that's where it comes from with them in particular.
Hey, Kelly Laughlin, thanks, Dave and Genevieve. You both rock. And she means Courtney, too. Thank you for that super chat. Will Judy, my friend, $20. You are all right. Conspiracy theories are distilled down to feelings over facts. Yep. I want. Do you have that letter in front of you, Courtney? I can pull it up, but I wanted to read just a couple of excerpts, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, you do the reading. I've read it enough.
You don't want to. You don't want to revisit
No,
that.
I don't want to read it. No.
Okay. This is part of an email that Courtney and her brother got from her parents back in, when was this? 2017? No,
it was last year.
Last year. I'm sorry. So just last year. So I think it started because you said in your blog, and by the way, guys, you need to read Courtney's blog. She's a great writer, has great content. Support her on Patreon. There's links in the chat room. You guys, she's been doing great work for a long time. So you guys were trying to, they were at first resistant to getting the vaccine, and you wouldn't let them come around your kids until they did. So they were even lying to you about it, and a threat, just very evasive about that. So you started to kind of wonder, okay, what's going on here, right? It was like, this is not the parents I thought I knew.
Well, my mom's always been like, she's always questioned vaccines, but she got my brother and I totally vaccinated, and my dad always believed in vaccines. But what happened was they were skeptical of this new vaccine for all the reasons that everybody says constantly. And of course, at the time, my son was too young to get vaccinated, and my brother's daughter she still is too young to get vaccinated. Right. And so we were concerned about them catching COVID. And so we wanted to protect them, and we
protect your kids.
My parents. Right. Mm-hmm. So we told them, you need to get vaccinated or we're going to keep our kids away from you because we don't want them to catch it.
And the grandparent kicked in. So they did get the vax, right?
They did. And I was there. So I saw it.
Oh, you saw it. You probably wouldn't believe they did until they showed you that, until you actually saw it, right? I mean, I wouldn't have.
I saw both doses of my dad's, but I only saw one of my mom's. So I'm not entirely convinced that she got the second one, but
I'd be skeptical too. I mean, based on this. So let me read a little bit from this email that was, and this came out of, I'm sure your mouth was just hanging open, like, what is happening?
Yeah, this was unexpected. This email, my brother texted me after reading it, and he was like, a bunch of swear words, and he was like, they are full on QAnon. And I was like, what? So I opened it up and I read it, and blown away.
Okay. So some very wealthy people, the wealthiest people in the world, made up a plan to control the population and the people of the world. They prepped us with SARS, Zika, etc. The COVID, patented in 2015, didn't know that, scare was their plan to kill off as many people as possible and to throw the fear of God into everyone, only it didn't kill as many as they wanted. Consequently, they relabeled all deaths as COVID. Very few flu deaths last year, first year on record, ! Only COVID. The masks and this distancing, etc., are all scare tactics and their way of controlling us. Again, we're not mocking people, we're mocking ideas, okay? We don't. A group of military, along with JFK back in the 60s, decided they needed to somehow stop all the corruption. They planned for many years. They have done incredible things up to this point. They rescued many, many children and adults from, and I'm not making this up, you can't make this up, DUMBS, D-U-M-B-S, which stands for, in parentheses, Deep Underground Military Bases. Okay, pause. I have to say, whoever wrote that DUMBS Q post was trolling the fucking universe. It's so obvious. And yet it's not. It's literally DUMBS. Oh my God. Courtney.
I know. There's no critical thinking going on at all.
There's really no need to read more. There's a lot about babies, and there's there was 665 planes that had to fly from the Vatican with the gold in them to put somewhere, because we're going to a gold standard, and there's thousands and 8 million babies a year. And of course, I guess behind all of this nonsense is the constant theme that, well, you don't hear about it because mainstream media is covering it up. That's why you don't hear. So, when we're wondering, where are the parents of these 8 million children, you would think there would be a bit of an outcry. And yet, nope, there is, but the mainstream media is covering it up. I mean, that's how they protect themselves, right?
Yeah, despite the fact that there's an internet that these 8 million kids' parents could be talking on and posting stuff on.
The media is covering that up too. Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
the level of coordination it would take to keep a conspiracy like this silent from the rest of us is just massive, on a scale beyond anything the world has ever seen.
Yeah. And it would involve, like, because their conspiracy theories are tied very closely in with big pharma and all that stuff. It would involve, like, doctors and pharmacists and researchers and everybody who works in a hospital, everybody who works in clinics. And the funny thing is that we actually have a family friend who's a doctor who my parents know and have socialized with on numerous occasions, and who they respect a great deal. They have, like, in order for their conspiracy to work, they have to believe that he's in on it. Like, but there's just, they have this cognitive dissonance going on. Like, they are pros at cognitive dissonance because they can just separate it.
Yeah.
And they can be around our doctor friend and have full respect for him and not even connect it to the fact that he would have to be lying to them in order for any of this to be true. And then, of course, in that email, they made predictions about, there's going to be an emergency broadcast and one of those emergency texts that we all get. And they're going to, basically, in this text that they're going to send out, it's going to be, an admission to all of this stuff. And that never happened. But of course,
but it's going to. It's going to, Courtney. Come on. It's like Jesus coming back. It's going to.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Any day now. Just you have to believe, trust. What is it? But trust the plan, or whatever their code word thing is. How did you respond to that email, Courtney, or did you? I just don't even know what I would say.
We did respond to it. I'm going to be honest, I got about a paragraph into it, and I could not read it. I could not go any further.
I don't blame you, honestly.
I didn't fully read the whole thing until I was writing this whole thing for my blog. So, like, a year later, I didn't fully read the whole thing. I couldn't cope with it. And my brother, he's it's funny because when I was younger, I used to be the firecracker. I used to have trouble, reeling in my emotions, and now like I'm the calm one, and he just, like, immediately responds with fury. And so he did a lot of the talking after that email, and I would just pop in and respond to it. There was like a month there where my brother and I were spending almost every single day, all day long, responding to emails from my mom. And it was like, as we're writing this reply, a new one would come in, and it was just, and I don't know if you've read the article that I wrote about vaccines on my blog, but it's 9,000 words long. And most of that is actually taken from the emails that I sent to my mom, arguing with her about the vaccines. Because we narrowed in on the vaccines, because how do you argue with the stuff that she said?
So you kind of put the crazy stuff aside and focused in on what really mattered in the here and now, right?
Yeah, and we eventually got them to watch the Netflix documentary called I forget what it was called, but it was the one about how like social media kind of manipulates your feed to just keep feeding you stuff. Yeah. I forget what that was called, but anyways, they watched it, and my mom replied to my email and said, "Okay, we watched this," and they were like, she was like, "Holy crap! Like we've been lied to," and all of this stuff, and they basically told my brother and I that they've snapped out of it because of this documentary.
Really?
And yeah, and then we had it was a friend of ours who was very like, she was a friend of my mom's, and she runs like a zero waste store in town. She's one of those like alternative medicine type people who believes in like who's skeptical of vaccines and all of this stuff. And she caught COVID and she passed it on to her parents because she's very close with them. And her father ended up in the hospital. And this man is somebody who we've spent a lot of time with him. He's very close to our family. And so I told my mom that he was in the hospital with COVID. And then I had a friend of ours who had COVID and had spread it to her parents. She talked to them and she said, if I could go back and get the vaccine, I would do that. And so they finally, like the next day, they decided they were going to get the vaccine. And that's kind of where we thought we had won. We thought we had convinced.
And how long ago was this? How long ago was this?
That was June of last, so a year ago, June of last year.
So about a year ago. You thought, okay, we've wrestled this bear to the ground and they're coming out of their coma. You thought that, right?
Yep, I tweeted about it and everything.
So what happened?
Like, oh my God.
What happened to change your mind?
Well, recently it was slowly like kind of they were showing signs of believing weird things again, and I was kind of putting it out of my mind because I didn't want to deal with it. And then one day we were hanging out here for my husband's birthday, and I had been the war in Ukraine had started, and I had been talking to my parents because I'd been kind of poking to see what their response to certain things would be. And so I would keep bringing up the war in Ukraine, and I would be like, I can't believe that Putin is doing this. What an asshole, blah, 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 blah. And just to judge their response. And my mom would stay silent. And she would give me this look that means she disagrees with me, but she doesn't feel comfortable arguing with me. And then as soon as I was done ranting about it, she would change the subject immediately to something totally.
So that gave you a clue that, yeah, she was hiding her true feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. So I brought it up again at my brother's or my husband's birthday when they were there. And then at some point we brought up the vaccines at some point, and my dad I can't remember what it was I was trying to ask them when they were going to get their boosters. And my dad finally, he just got, like, I was pushing him. I was polite about it and everything. I wasn't being a jerk, but I was pushing, and I guess I pushed too far, and my dad finally snapped at me, and he's like, he yelled, and my dad doesn't yell, and he yelled, and he said, what did he say? He said, if only you knew what was really going on. And I knew then.
Boy. There we go. Yeah. Here we go. If only you knew the things I know.
Yeah.
That secret back info that, that they're into and on. Yeah. Oh my God. Anton Gomez, Mexican $100. I'm a former conspiracy theorist who nowadays speaks against this stuff. Thank you. Trust me, it's not necessarily a troll. I believed all kinds of wacky shit. Yes, I understand that. I believe you did. I did too. I believe people walked on water and raised from the dead. So We do have a call I want to get to from Hong Kong. You've pulled him in from around the world, Courtney. Douglas, he, him. Conspiracy theories in the U.S. seem to be fear-based. Leadership could be the answer. ? If only we had leadership anywhere. Hey, Douglas.
Hey, Dave, how you doing? And to thank you to Genevieve and Courtney for a great show today.
Thank you.
As it says, I'm based here in Hong Kong, and an American citizen for sure. But a lot of this stuff, we know conspiracy theories and cults in general, I think, get their membership from people who are either lacking direction. The studies have shown about people wanting a place to go where there are shared beliefs and a sense of community. So I think isolation has a lot to do with it, and the internet hasn't helped that for sure. And people get drawn into this, and it's a sense of belonging. And then once they're in, it's like Trump doubling down, where I'm too far in now, I have to believe it, and then extricating yourself from that is extremely difficult. The longer you're in, we've seen, whether it's Scientology or FLDS, whatever it happens to be, that it's more difficult to get yourself, out of it. And I agree with you, Dave, in that Trump literally opened the door, not only in the United States, but globally, because it's here in Hong Kong as well. And I see it in the UK, where I spend a lot of time, where it's just okay to say these things. Particularly, I think in America, that people want certainty. I find that this is not unique to America, but it's very pronounced in America, where people want certainty about answers. It's black, it's white, it's blue,
Absolutely.
it's green, it's yellow, it's purple. And it's the simplification of issues that exacerbates the problem, for sure. And from my standpoint, and the certainty comes from a lot of times fear. So I think that there's a huge, and I think that Courtney, you had mentioned this, or maybe it was Jen, that a lot of this is fear-based, where people are afraid, what's going to happen to the economy? Am I going to have money to put food on the table? Do I have health care? What happens if I get sick? This is the only country where people go bankrupt. One of the only countries, if not the only country, where they go bankrupt for medical reasons, which is unheard of anywhere else, including here in Hong Kong, where we have free medical care.
It's criminal.
But in the and it's fear-based, and it's a sense of belonging. It's based in fear and somewhat of isolation. But I don't see QAnon, helping out any, needless to say, for sure. But I think that they make matters worse for themselves a lot of this time, and the GOP in general and QAnon specifically, where they have these conspiracy theories that go against the things that would bring them certainty and allay their fears. So we talk about universal health care or some type of socialized medicine in the United States. And the conspiracy theorists are right on top of it about socialists are going to run the country and they're going to bring us down, and et cetera. But that would allay your fear about your costs, right?
Yeah.
They're worried about we don't want teen pregnancies, but they won't fund Planned Parenthood. Yeah, they don't want, they want safe streets. We want safe streets and our kids in school, and it's all a right-wing, left-wing LGBT pedophile conspiracy against the kids in school, but they won't pass the gun laws. So the infighting, and I guess my question is, how do you make them see kind of the error of their ways, and that the things that they're espousing are the very things that keep them
I don't think these
their fears
people, I don't think they want to do away with the fear. I think they want their constituency to have a baseline fear, because that keeps the constituency.
The politicians, for sure.
Yes, that's what I mean. And it's not unlike, in my experience in the evangelical world, that's also a fear-based environment. And if the people, I mean, the whole biblical narrative is the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So this is a God to be feared. And if the people you're trying to shepherd and control lose their fear, you've got no motivating factors. So you've got to keep them afraid of going broke if they don't give, of becoming sick if they don't pray, if they don't come to the church and continue to give you their allegiance. So all of that is designed to control the masses. Religion is the opiate of the masses. It's control based. And politics is no different. It's a different kind of religion, in my opinion. And the politicians who want to stay in power need people who are afraid. And Trump, I don't know that we will see in a long time the length of the damage he's done, not only to this country, but to the whole fucking world. He is just a horrible human that was unleashed on humanity at the worst possible time. And he's done untold damage, but enough of that. I think the fear is what they thrive in, and they don't want to give the answers to these people because they want the people afraid. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Courtney and Genevieve?
I think the number one thing that has to happen to solve all social problems is completely untethering politics from money, because that gets in the way of everything. It gets in the way of every change, of everything that we want to do. Every step in progress is held back to some degree by the fact that there's money in politics. And these, the politicians who want to stay in power and will manipulate their constituents to do so are motivated by that money. If the money was untethered from politics, people who truly wanted to lead would be attracted to that position, as opposed to people who want their pockets laid with money from big giant corporations and stuff like that. But I think that's the first step. It was my father-in-law who said that to me, because I was talking to him about starting nonprofits and working for nonprofits and stuff like that. And he's like, it's all useless. He says, none of it is going to make a difference until we get money out of politics. And he said, if people who worked in nonprofits were smart, every nonprofit in the world would band together and make that their goal first, and then split off into their, little respective goals. But that's, I think, the number one thing is to get money out of politics, because there is a vested interest in lying to people. Yeah,
to keep themselves in power and keep that money rolling in. Genevieve?
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right that it is fear-based. And Courtney, I think you're absolutely right that getting money out of politics would be a fantastic first step to stopping this nonsense from spreading the way that it does. I also think, on top of there being fear and on top of us needing better leadership, I think about your parents, and I think about a friend that I have that I went to elementary school with, who are both, it seems like, very much on the left, very much naturopaths into holistic medicine, because of this belief that they had that big pharma was corrupt and bad for you. And that is something that has an inkling of truth in it. I mean, we've seen what the Sackler family has done with the opiate epidemic. We've seen a lot of pharmaceutical companies get away with heinous things. And so that's why I want to propose that another solution to this problem would just be having genuine transparency and accountability. It's no wonder that when you see companies or police forces or whoever getting away with these things because of this vested interest that they have in politics, that's largely often why they get away with these things. It can be very easily to get quickly disillusioned and jump straight into a conspiracy. How can they be so successful at blatantly hurting us when, without one? And so it's so sad to see this inkling of truth there, that yes, big pharma is bad, then taken to such an extreme that is vaccines are dangerous and they have microchips or they're going to track you, and there's actually lizard people drinking baby's blood. Like it seems like a crazy connection to make, but I've seen it happen very rapidly in real time.
Yeah.
This simple inkling of truth just gets completely taken out of context, and so I do think that if we had better accountability for damaging individuals and organizations who benefit from power, and if we had a society that was more broadly focused on the well-being of individuals
Mm-hmm.
than on the profits of corporations, then a lot of these conspiracy theories would be gone before they could even start.
Because they wouldn't be
I
bored
agree.
and angry and afraid like people who
Yeah.
are captivated by these are. And your parents, I think it does make sense, Courtney, that your parents just got bored and felt powerless and purposeless. And this gave them something to sink their teeth into. Something, they've got
Yeah.
a secret. They're in on the secret and no one else understands it. And it's not unlike religion. It's not unlike the idea that, I know that Jesus is going to come back and there's an Armageddon and an Antichrist, and not everyone in the world sees this because they don't have the spiritual eyes that I see. It's not unlike that mindset, and it's dumbfounding to those of us on this side of it. But having been on that side of that religious indoctrination, I could understand it. Hey, Zach Brannigan, another Antichrist 666. Oh, we are going to hell tonight, aren't we? News agencies have higher standards. Doing verified evidence-based reporting couldn't hurt. You three are part of the solution. We are going to save the world, the three of us. I'm actually doing a talk this weekend at Better Conference in Fort Wayne, Indiana. If anybody is close to that, please come out. There's a lot of great speakers, and including Seth Andrews and Shannon Q and Paula Gia and Dr. Josh Bowen and Holy Kool-Aid. And I'm missing people, I know. I'm sorry. Cynthia Leonard, I think. Yeah. I'm just going off the top of my head, and me. But come out. I'm given the topic to talk about how to communicate with indoctrinated people, how to talk to deeply indoctrinated people. So I've been thinking a lot about this subject, having been one of those times. There's a link to that, by the way. You have to listen, first of all. We talked about this tonight in different ways. And Douglas, you brought a great point up. People are living in fear, and deeply indoctrinated people have a baseline of fear from which they're operating. And we have to understand that, or we won't be able to communicate well with them. If we just try to blast their beliefs, whether it's evangelical Jesus returning or QAnon nonsense, if we just come at them through the front door, telling them how stupid they are, we're never going to have a conversation. We're never going to be able to reach any kind of common ground. And we talked about it earlier tonight. I've been on this soapbox for months now about the lack of nuance in our conversations. Everything's black and white. Everyone wants certainty. That was the stock in trade of the evangelical world. You're either lost or you're saved. You're right or you're wrong. You're good or you're bad. We need a bad guy. We need an evil one. We need a savior and a bad guy. Those are the concepts. I mean, look at the movies we enjoy. They've got these superheroes that always slay the bad guy. And that's the way it is. Jesus is going to beat Satan at Armageddon, and everyone's going to live happily ever after, except you people who don't believe. You're going to hell. But we've got to find common ground, and I see it in the secular community too. We get to arguing with each other about stuff that doesn't matter, and we cut each other off. We cancel each other. We block each other. We unfriend each other. It's got to fucking stop. Because if we don't learn how to have better conversations with each other and find better common ground, we can't fix the big picture stuff, but we can have better conversations one-on-one. And it starts with getting in front of a person with a cup of coffee or a glass of bourbon or a cigar, all those things that I love, and having a real conversation with another human that you disagree with, and finding places of commonality. You tried to do it, Genevieve. At the end of the day, we're all Americans. Well, maybe not for long, and yeah, sometimes it's hard. You can't find common ground with some people, but we have to try. God, we have
I
to
would
try.
argue too that to try and help this situation, the left and atheists and everybody who's not Christian, right?
Right.
We're terrible at organizing. We are terrible.
Oh my God.
at standing up and fighting for the things that we believe in. We are really bad at that, and the right is really good at it. And that's why you have such a minority winning out with things like, overturning Roe versus Wade and stuff. They've been working at this, stacking the Supreme Court and all that. They've been working at this for years. They're dedicated. They are committed to this. They're organized, and they don't, they seem not to, it doesn't matter what degree of QAnon you believe in or what degree of Christianity, they don't turn on each other.
That's right.
They work together.
They're unified. They're unified front.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what we need to do. And that it frustrated me so much after the shooting in Texas recently, when I'm watching all of these people say, why won't they do something? And like the last time I checked, America was a democratic country. So who is they? Who is they that you're passing this buck off to?
Right.
Exactly. And if it bothers you that much, you should be standing up and you should be doing something about it. And if every single person who was bothered by it did that, things might change. Things might start to change. But it's always they need to do something, or my government won't do this and my government won't do that. Like you elected them. They represent you. So you need to do something. And that's something that the left, or I say the left, but it's really anybody who's left of the extreme right, needs to really understand, is that in order for any of these changes to happen, we need to come together and we need to work towards those ends. We need to be organized. And, part of that is starting grassroots movements locally, all the unionization efforts around the US, that's promising. That's stuff that's going to take power away from corporations and stuff like that. So that's, I think, one of the most important steps too, is for us to realize that we actually do have power. And, we're used to it. Like the three of us, obviously we talk out and we speak out constantly about this stuff, but I don't know how to convince, the people who follow us on Twitter or people who follow us on Facebook, how we convince them to believe in their own power to change things. I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing, you followers. Quit arguing with people on Twitter and Facebook and Reddit and find somewhere, get out from behind your fucking keyboard and find somewhere or something that you can do that makes a positive difference. Don't just sit and argue with people about stuff that's not moving the needle. There are hills you need to die on and stands you need to take, but not as many as we think there are. Find some common ground, find a human being you can connect with, and see where, like Courtney said, you can make an impact. What can you do on a local level? That's where it starts.
Yeah, if you looked at the convoy, the Freedom Convoy in Canada, that was a protest. That was something that was effective. It got everybody's attention. They got the world's attention, and it was such a small number of Canadians. And most Canadians think that those people are out of their minds. But this tiny little portion of Canada captivated the world news for so long, and it even inspired other copycat convoys around the world. And there's actually another one going on right now for Canada Day, because that's on July 1st. But it's that sort of thing that the left needs to do. Like, I would like to see the left, the vast majority of Canadians who believe that what those people are doing and fighting for is wrong. We need to make a bigger spectacle of that. We need to get on the news. And because the other thing that happens too is people follow fads, people follow trends, and
Yeah.
And whatever they're seeing in the news, they're like, oh, that gives me a good feeling. I want to go follow that, or I want to support that. So we need to engage in some of those tactics, obviously without keeping all of the residents of Ottawa awake for 2 weeks, but you know, getting in the news and doing things that get attention, and
Right.
and yeah.
That's a great, Douglas. We kind of strayed off your topic. I guess we, but
No, it's all good. It's all good, and
you raised a good thought, though.
Well, no, look, thank you. The three of you are doing a great job. And Courtney, you're right. I agree with your father-in-law in that, you know, Citizens United was one of the worst decisions the Supreme Court ever made. And it is about the money, and these leaders are not going to lead us away from this anytime soon.
No.
They're going to continue to follow the money and the corporate, you know, enabling through donations. But look, I'll cut it short. You guys are doing a fantastic job. And last but not least is a huge, heartfelt thank you, Dave. And I want to get emotional, but thank you for your book, Childish Things, available at Amazon and fine bookstores everywhere. For those of you who haven't read it, please go out and get yourself a copy. It's one of the best reads. I'm halfway through my second reading of the book. So really, thank you very, very much. Well, there are a lot of nuances that you don't pick up the first time around. So it's worth a second read for sure. Thank you all for the work you're doing. I'll let you get back to all the callers. And very much thank you all for your time and the work you do. It's much appreciated, and hopefully will lead us to a better path.
Thank you, Douglas, from Hong Kong tonight. Appreciate your call, buddy.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye, guys.
And praise Satan from Australia with another Antichrist 666. Courtney, we are all going to hell immediately after this show.
Oh, I already have my spot reserved.
It's going to be a great party there. All the fun people are going to be there.
Yeah.
We're almost out of time. Wow, this went fast. I cannot believe how fast this went.
Yeah.
I'm, you know, Courtney, I'm on a personal level. I'm just really sorry you're dealing with this. I know it's been stressful and traumatizing. And do you, by the way, have you ever seen the documentary talking about those things, The Brainwashing of My Father?
No.
Okay, check it out. It's about this lady whose father was a good guy, decent guy. Then he got a job where he's listening to driving a lot, listening to talk radio, Rush Limbaugh kind of stuff. Then he got hooked on Fox News, and he turned into this mean, angry person that Fox News creates. I wonder, do your parents watch Fox News? Do you know?
I don't know.
Anyway,
I know they watch Canadian news.
Long story short, she ended up through some trickery, like someone turning their YouTube to where it only presents in Saudi Arabia, or their Facebook through some trickery like that. They convinced him that the TV didn't work and Fox News was broken and he couldn't watch it anymore. And he transformed back. Like,
wow.
What the fuck? He literally turned back into the dad they knew. I
should just go cut their internet.
When he quit feeding on the shit, he quit feeding on the poison. It really was that. It was that effective in turning him into someone he wasn't. And I'm not saying it's that simple with your parents, but I guess my question is, how do you feel? Do you have hope that they can come back to reality, or what do you think? What are you feeling?
No, I don't. I like specifically my dad. Like I said, he's in the beginning stages of dementia, and I don't think he's like. I think a lot of this stems from that. Like a lot of his belief stems from that. But my mom, like I said, she's always kind of clung to these fringe ideas. And they've also both been very anti-establishment my whole life. Which, I mean, I am too, and they raised me that way too. But it's like you can't just because something is anti-establishment doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
But anyways, I don't think that they do. Yeah.
Genevieve, you touched on it. It always has a kernel of truth. And when they latch onto something like child sacrifice and they hashtag save the babies, who in their right mind wouldn't want to say, oh my God, yes, save the babies. What can I do to help you save the babies? And so there's a kernel of truth or empathy there. And then they go off the rails with it. And then you don't even know how to have a conversation. So it's I'm very sorry to hear that. It's very frustrating. I can't imagine. I mean, I kind of can. I don't know if my family's in QAnon. We don't talk much about any of that stuff. My extended family, brothers and mom, and I know they're all Trumpers and right-wing conservative evangelicals. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they were dabbling in the fringes of QAnon conspiracy stuff, or at least parts of it. I don't know how far down the rabbit hole they might be, if at all. Hey, Paula Gia popped into the chat. Hey, buddy, gonna see you at Better. And I've actually been trying to get a hold of you, man. We want to get you booked on the show. Actually, got Shannon Q lined up.
Another Canadian.
Another Canadian, eh? These nice people, eh?
Some of us are nice.
But man, I'm dumbfounded. I don't have any answers to the QAnon thing. I don't have any. I mean, we've touched on a lot of things tonight that are places, things in the right direction, places we can maybe start making progress. At least, I guess we're boiling it down to we can't fix all of that, but we can maybe have better conversations with the people around us, especially the people we disagree with, and try to bring a level of civility back into our social circles, at least as much as it depends on us. I'm pulling from a scripture. Every now and then I get these talking, a scripture pops into my mind. I can't help myself. A preacher all those years. As much as it lies within you, be at peace with all men. Now, see, there's good stuff in the Bible. So that's kind of where it is. As much as I have control over my environment, I can be better with the people around me. And that's really what this conference is going to be talking about. I'm really excited about it. That's coming up this weekend. If you're in the Nashville area, the NanoCon in the end of July, you'll see Seth Andrews, Matt Dillahunty, Gail Jordan from Recovering from Religion, myself, other people. I don't have the list in front of me, but another great conference that I'm excited about. And Courtney, where can people find you and your work? Plug yourself a minute before we go.
You can read this ongoing story of my parents and QAnon at godlessmom.com/blog. And I'm also on Twitter at godless_mom and on Facebook at facebook.com/godlessmom.
Okay. I think we put your stuff in the links. Your links in the chat, stuff in the whatever. And Genevieve, you've got some shows coming up, but don't know sure what's scheduled anytime soon.
No, nothing scheduled right now. I'm just kind of taking a second to focus on the summer and working, but definitely getting some penciled in soon.
Cool. Well, it's been a fascinating conversation. I wish we could snap our fingers and make people behave better and think all the right things and believe only what's true. But we can't. But we're going to keep trying. And so I do encourage you people, support Godless Mom. She does great stuff. Become a Patreon supporter of hers. If you want to support this channel, we appreciate all the super chats. You guys are awesome. But if you want to support us more in the traveling we do, I don't ever make money on this travels. I always lose money a lot, actually, when I go out and travel and speak. But it's important to me to be in front of people. What we were talking about tonight, for me, that human-to-human contact is everything. And as long as I'm physically able to do it, I'm going to do as much as I can. It is getting more difficult, not going to lie. But it's important to me to make these efforts to get in front of people and have that human contact, because it's everything. So we've got a Patreon link as well you can support, but I know times are tough for a lot of people, so don't feel obligated ever. So anyway, that's our show for the night. We appreciate you coming on. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.